Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Riot. This movie tells the story of a police officer who purposefully orchestrates a robbery in order to be thrown into a prison, where a notorious Russian criminal is using prison as a cover to run his crime outside. Thinking he's safe in his castle, he's not aware his days of control are rapidly dwindling. Can the police officer put an end to the crime lord and corrupt prison guards? Let's find out in Riot. Riot begins by showing a police officer named Green, who was sent to deliver some money to Balam, a high-profile prisoner who gets luxurious facilities in prison, complete with personal guards. Even though he is in prison, Balam, who is a drug lord, can still run his business and regulate drug trafficking inside and outside the prison. Not only that, Balam also runs an arms trade and human trafficking business. Balam chose to stay in prison, as his enemies could not touch Balam there. Especially after Balam's head was valued at $1 million, it's no wonder that many assassins were deployed to kill him. On the other hand, the new prisoners who will be placed in the same prison as Balam are then directed to their respective cells. But before that, a prisoner named Jack Stone, approached by Officer Green because Jack was thrown into prison after committing a robbery and killing a police officer who was none other than a colleague of Officer Green. Annoyed, Officer Green then punched Jack in the stomach and sneered by saying that Jack would not last long in the prison. 1 week earlier, Jack and two of his friends robbed a bank to obtain valid evidence that could be used to uncover acts of corruption and oppression by government officials, as well as several police officers who worked with Balam. After getting the money and the necessary information, Jack immediately ran away from there. But then, Jack and his two comrades are surrounded by the cops, in which the two comrades are shot dead by the cops. Jack managed to escape and fled to a building after incapacitating several police officers. When Jack was about to leave, suddenly a policeman poked his head from behind, threatening him. Jack then took off his mask, revealing his face to the policeman, which made the policeman very surprised because Jack was a fellow police officer. Without thinking, Jack immediately pushed the policeman, and they both fell from a height, where the policeman was instantly killed while Jack survived. Jack deliberately did this because the police officer was one of the police officers involved in the murder of Jack's wife. After that, Jack brought all the evidence and files of information regarding the corrupt act to a reporter named Tricia, and asked Tricia to investigate and report the case to the prosecutor's office. Back in prison, Jack is placed in a cell with a prisoner named Silva. During lunch, a prisoner named Semyon, who is Balam's cousin, asked a new prisoner for security money. Because the man refused to give money to Semyon, the man was beaten by Semyon. After that, Semyon approached Jack and intended to ask Jack for money. But before Semyon could threaten Jack, the man first attacked Semyon and knocked him and his men down. The guards then put Semyon and his men into solitary confinement, while Jack continued his leisurely lunch. Jack is then taken by the guards to a room to interact with Balam via a CCTV camera. Balam then warns Jack not to interfere with his business in prison, and reminds Jack of the death of his wife who was killed by Balam and his henchmen. Balam also tried to threaten Jack, but Jack didn't seem to pay much attention to Balam's threat. That night, Jack was suddenly attacked by three prisoners who broke into his holding cell. But Jack managed to incapacitate the three easily, without even waking Silva up. Meanwhile, Tricia, who gets a file of information about corruption by government officials and members of the police, tries to investigate the information and find out about Jack Stone's identity. The next day, Tricia went to the prosecutor's office to meet the prosecutor. However, the prosecutor suddenly had to attend an important meeting, so Tricia was asked to hand over the information file to the prosecutor's assistant named Mark. Tricia did not believe Mark, then said that she would come back again to meet the prosecutor in person. Tricia turned out to be waiting in front of the prosecutor's office to meet the prosecutor in person and tell about the information she had about corruption by government officials and members of the police. After that, Tricia visits Jack in prison and says that she is investigating the information Jack gave her. Jack then asked Tricia to be careful and use the information properly. After returning to his cell, Jack again reminisced about the beautiful moments with his now-deceased wife. A prisoner named William then came to Jack and told him to increase his vigilance after attacking Semyon. But Jack says that he is not afraid of Semyon or Balam and asks where is Balam's detention cell. William said that it was strictly confidential. Even many of the wardens did not know it. The scene then switches and shows the atmosphere in a women's prison, where two women seem to be fighting. The guards then came and secured the two female prisoners, where one of them was taken to a place with her head covered. The woman, whose name is Alina, was apparently brought before Balam, where Semyon and several other prisoners were also there. Semyon and the male detainees were shown to have made personal gain by selling drugs and asking for security money without Balam's knowledge. while Alina was brought there because she had beaten up one of Balam's favorite female minions. Balam then held a contest with a prize of $10,000 for whoever could kill Jack Stone and bring the man's head before him. Hearing this, William then told Jack about it. Without further ado, the other prisoners began to gang up on Jack to win the Balam contest. But Jack can easily defeat them all with William's help. On the other hand, Balam received a call from District Attorney Johnson, who said that a female reporter had evidence and information related to corruption by government officials and also members of the police who worked with Balam. Balam then asks the prosecutor to get rid of the female reporter, whereas he will get rid of Jack Stone before the day ends. While working on the laundry, Jack gets another attack, and this time, it comes from the prison warden, who again beats Jack. After leaving the laundry room, Jack was confronted by a group of prisoners who were about to attack him. But before that, Jack said if $100,000 divided by the number of prisoners who would attack him, then each person would only get $11,000. Because it was deemed not worth the risk, the prisoners finally gave up their intention to attack Jack and walked away. Elsewhere, Tricia tells her friend Allison about Balam and government officials committing corruption. Meanwhile, in the women's prison, Alina goes to Balam's female henchman named Kat and apologizes on orders from Balam. But then, Alina purposely angers Kat, so they clash again and Alina pretends to be unconscious when Kat beats her up. Alina was then taken to the medical room for medical treatment. When the doctors and nurses left, Alina immediately took off her handcuffs, took some alcohol and drugs, and hid them in the mop bucket that William often used, then sneaked into the air vents to find the location of the CCTV room. Tricia returns to visit Jack in prison and tells him about the massacre committed by Balam men. On the other hand, Alina, who already knew the location of the CCTV room, then rushed back to the medical room before being caught. But unfortunately, the nurse was heading to the medical room. Luckily, William came right away and distracted the nurse, so Alina could sneak back into the medical room unnoticed. While they were observing the situation together, Jack asked William how long he had been undercover. It turns out that Jack knows that William is not a real prisoner, but an undercover FBI agent. William deliberately disguises himself as a prisoner to expose corrupt police officers and members who are linked to Balam. William had been on an undercover mission for 6 months, and Alina is his partner. After explaining everything to Jack, the two are then attacked by other prisoners. Because it was considered to trigger a commotion, Jack was thrown into solitary confinement, while William was asked to appear before Warden Blaine in his office. Blaine threatens William to hand him some money if William still wants to survive in prison, because William has attacked Balam henchmen and the prison guards cannot ensure his safety without security money. Meanwhile, Tricia again tries to meet District Attorney Johnson, but the assistant says that the prosecutor can't be found because he has important business. Mark then suggested to Tricia to give the information he knew to the FBI. Not long after, Balam received a visit from his daughter, so he was taken away from his cell. William then signals Alina to start his action as Balam leaves his cell. After pretending to be unconscious, Alina was taken away by a prison warden. But then, Alina and William incapacitate the warden. Alina sneaked into the CCTV room, while William headed to the control room after disguised as one of the prison guards. Through CCTV cameras, Alina learns that Balam will soon leave the visiting room after his daughter has vented all her disappointments on Balam for being a criminal kingpin. Knowing this, William then opened the door of the solitary confinement and freed Jack. After incapacitating a warden, Jack is told by William that he and Alina will help Jack get to Balam Place. Jack immediately disguised himself as one of the prison guards and followed directions from William and Alina. But not long after, Warden Blaine and several prison guards found out that someone had broken into the CCTV room. Alina rushed out of there through the ventilation duct. Since there was no time left and Balam had almost reached his cell, William then opened all the doors in the prison, causing chaos everywhere. A fierce feud ensued when the prisoners flocked to attack the prison guards. Green is desperate, trying to escape, but is blocked by Jack, who pushes him into a group of inmates who immediately beat Green up. William and Alina also seem to be busy dealing with attacks from anyone. When Jack tries to reach Balam, he is confronted by Semyon, so they start fighting again. Semyon manages to stab Jack in the stomach with a knife, but Jack was still able to beat the man. Elsewhere, it turns out that Allison conspires with the prosecutor and is tasked with killing Tricia and destroying the woman's information. Allison almost kills Tricia, before finally an FBI agent arrives and saves Tricia, which the FBI agent is none other than Mark. During this time, it turned out that Mark was disguised as a prosecutor's employee to uncover corruption committed by District Attorney Johnson and other government officials. Back in prison, when William manages to knock out Warden Blaine and the other guards, Jack finally manages to find Balam, where they then duel each other in hand-to-hand combat. When Jack fell helpless, the man again remembered his late wife, which then made Jack rise again, so that he was finally able to overthrow Balam and avenge his wife's death. Shortly after, the SWAT team arrived at the prison and managed to secure the situation. William then met Jack and introduced Alina to him. William also said that his boss wanted to thank him for helping eradicate Balam gang inside and outside the prison. Jack also thanked them both for helping him get his revenge. All government officials, as well as members of the police force who were proven corrupt and cooperated with Balam, were eventually arrested by the FBI. The film ends by showing Jack being made a prisoner by William, where later Jack will be promoted as an FBI agent and become William's partner. The moral of this film is, don't be afraid to uphold justice and reveal the truth, as Jack and Tricia did, who indirectly worked together to uncover corruption by government officials and police officers.